I've bought a new car. Now, don't worry, it's not another project. It will feature on some videos, such as this one, just because it needs a little bit of work, but Misty the MR2 is still and always will be the main focus of the channel. Now that we have our new workshop, I wanted a car to get me to and from, so that I wouldn't leave Sophie stranded without a car, hence this purchase. The only problem was, I decided I wanted something very specific and somewhat rare, and the only one I could find was in another country 12 hours away, and I've never seen it in person. Luckily for me, the seller offered to arrange shipping with a company he knew and got a much better price than any shipping quotes I could find, so call me an optimist or more likely a sucker. I've transferred them the money and the car should be with me in 5 days. So it's now been a week and I don't have my car yet. It's been delayed. I'm not a total idiot. I did, before I paid any money, I confirmed that the shipping company was in fact a real company, and I checked with them to make sure they had been tasked with shipping my car. But a small part of me still feels like I'm being scammed. They've told me they're just short of drivers at the moment. The car should be with me within the next week, so hopefully I'll have it soon. It's been another week, still no car. I've heard from the shipping company, the car is now in this country, just up in Birmingham. He said that they can't get a driver to get it to me until next week now. In other news, registration document has arrived, so I'm legally responsible for the car that I don't have. It's now been 3 weeks since I bought the car, and it's still not here. It's moved again to a new country. It's now in Wales, with a new delivery company as well. That was not my doing. I'm guessing the original delivery company just sort of washed their hands of it. So I can only hope that's a good thing, and hopefully this new delivery company will be a little bit more competent. They've assured me it'll be with me by the end of the week. Let's see what happens. It's here, and it's filthy. Let's take a look around. It's not in the best condition. Windscreen is cracked, the side mirror is held together by tape, and the rear light has this bodged fix going on. But it has a tow bar, and it's an estate, or a wagon for our transatlantic viewers. As you can see, the interior is not the cleanest, and it's covered in sign writing for the previous owner's dog storage business. So that'll be one of the first things to go. Also, a lot of the bodywork is just a little bit scruffy. But let's take a seat inside and I'll tell you all about it. So this is a Vauxhall Omega, or Omega, depending on your pronunciation. In mainland Europe, it was sold as the Opel Omega, and in America, you had it as the Cadillac Catera? Not really sure how you pronounce that one either. And for my Australian viewers, this car formed the basis of the 3rd generation Holden Commodore. Believe it or not, this rather boring looking car is exactly what I wanted. I needed just a car to get me to and from the workshop without leaving Sophie at home with no transportation. I ideally wanted something pretty big like this. We got, it's an estate, big boot, can carry tools and parts and stuff like that. And I wanted a Vauxhall Omega. This car has always had a bit of a special place in my heart. Omega is quite a fitting name because it's the last letter of the Greek alphabet, and this car represents the end of an era in British motoring. This car was the last sort of readily available average person's rear-wheel drive car. When this finished, all you could buy was sports cars like the MR2 or the MG TF, or obviously an MX-5, or you could go upmarket into like BMW, Mercedes, Jaguar. Everything else, the average car, all went front-wheel drive, and after this car discontinued in 2003, its replacement, I can't remember what it was called, was also front-wheel drive. Yet this car represents a lot of firsts for me. It is my first estate, my first Vauxhall, my first V6, and believe it or not, my first proper front-engine rear-wheel drive car. I mean, obviously I've got the MR2, mid-engine rear-wheel drive. I also had a RX-8, but that's actually a front mid-engine rear-wheel drive. This is my first just normal, boring front-engine rear-wheel drive car. The first thing I noticed on stepping into this lovely, magnificently appointed fake wood interior was the smell. it absolutely reeks of WD-40. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I quite like the smell of WD-40, but there's a limit, and this is way too much. So hopefully I'll be able to clean or air that out. The second thing I noticed was, considering the high mileage, these leather seats are in pretty good condition. They're not the comfiest, but they've worn their miles well. And the third thing I noticed was the sticky switches. Everything is just covered in a layer of this horrible sticky grime. And it's not because the person used to eat a lot of chips and snacks and touch all the buttons. It's just cars of this era, they had this soft touch plastic that basically was normal plastic coated in a layer of rubberized stuff. And that rubberized stuff, 10 to 15 years later, just wants to turn back into oil. And that's what it does. So I got to try and de-goo the interior at some point. My plan for this car is, like I said, to drive it to and from the workshop. Now, it's got a year's MOT. Expires in January, I believe, 2024. For those who don't know, MOT is the British kind of roadworthiness and emissions certificate. I feel fairly confident it won't go through the next one without a fair amount of work. So I'm giving this, like, it's becoming my timeline. The time I have with this car until January is the time I'm giving myself to get Misty back on the road. And then Misty becomes the driver to and from the workshop and just daily driver in general. And this becomes the project. I'm not going to restore it or anything. I've got plans for this. One of the things that appeals to me about this car is I think it's a perfect sleeper platform. It's, you've got the big engine bay, it's front engine, rear wheel drive, and it's so boring looking, but in a good way. I think it's quite a good looking car, but it is a bit mundane. So that makes it great for a sleeper. I'm going to do some kind of engine drivetrain swap. Haven't fully settled on what yet. I mean, the auto's got to go. It needs to be a manual. Probably another V6, but something with a lot more power. And then just tidy up the exterior and any rust and stuff. So that's the plan for this car. At this point, I would say, let's go for a drive and see how it drives. But it's already broken. So next video will be fixing it.